everybody. Happy Sunday. Beautiful day. It's kind of windy, but it's not. It's a beautiful day. It's kind of nice to see the sun, isn't it? I get tired of all the clouds. Oh my gosh, we've had so many dreary days. Hi, Cindy. So, second here, let me get my comments up here too. So for a minute anyway. So I'm going to be sharing my screen. So I was going to show you a couple of things before I shared my screen with you for the software. So wait for a couple minutes while people are coming in. Bet everybody's outside in the nice weather instead of inside today. I've actually kind of hung out inside all day. It's been nice. Been doing some sewing. I finished up my Lynn's class. Lynn had a class yesterday and Friday, and I finished up my wreaths today. So I got two wreaths done. So that was nice. Hi, everybody. People are coming in. People are finding us. So I had, so we made wreaths yesterday and Friday. Yeah, Friday. I'll show those to you. I didn't like my first one, so I remade it. So I made this one today. I wanted red, white, and blue. So I thought this one was kind of pretty. It's a little darker. You know, the fabric's all pretty dark and the back's blue, or red. So I did kind of a light blue on this one and red. And then this one is, this is my remake. I made one like this in the class the first day and I didn't like it. So I remade it, but I changed the color so that there's silver metallic on this red here. So that made it prettier. So I got my 2 red, white, and blue wreaths done. I haven't decided what I'm going to do with them yet. So I got those. I've been working on those, try to get things done. So right after the class. So, oh, well, actually, I really like it a lot better now, Lynn. So I'm happy I redid it. Hi, Clara. Oh, all kinds of folks here. Everybody's finding us, so that's cool. I like the lighter one too. Yeah, I like them both. The one is it's darker than I thought it would be, but it actually, I do like it because the center fabric is not as white. It's a little bit more on the cream side. So yeah, I thought they turned out both turned out good. I liked one of the gals in the class made lace decorations around the wreath, and I like that idea. So I might do some of I've got patriotic lace, so I might make some lace decorations to put on it. I think that's kind of cool. So I've got a couple of cute patriotic lace designs that would be nice on there. So, okay. So tonight we're going to work on some multi-layer applique. And, we've done several applique classes. We've done appliques in before. And normally it's just one applique. But I like to do multiple layer applique, but normally when you do that, there's like a piece underneath another piece, and then you don't want to have all that bulk underneath. So I'm going to show you in this case how to do some multiple layer, and then we can remove part of the stitching out of the covering stitch so that it doesn't make it so bulky. So a couple of the gals have been making these little gnomes, and they were real interested in doing, working on these little gnomes, and they're machine applique, like traditional machine applique. And I'm not very good at that, and I don't enjoy it. So what I wanted to do was make them and then digitize them so that I could do them in my embroidery machine. So what I ended up doing is I downloaded these. So the name of it's called Gnome of the Month, and it's on there. They have a Facebook group. It's called Jelly Roll Club, and then they also have a website, and that's where you can go to get the little gnomes, and they're free. but they're free for personal use. So that's why I'm just doing these for myself. I didn't put any designs up or anything. You will need to do your own. These are just for personal use, and I'm just going to do them for myself for fun. But it's called jellyrollclub.com. That's where you go to get these. So here's my little gnome. I don't know if you can see him very well. He's got a little bit of a glare on. Let me turn this off a little bit. So here's my little gnome. Sorry, there's a little bit of a glare on him. I've got sun. There we go. So here's my little gnome. I did so each set, there's like a set every month, and this is my this is a January set, just so you know. So the first set had a little gnome, a couple of trees, and a house. So I think what I'm going to do, and I put these on one of those little, stretch canvases. So here's my gnome. And then I'm going to do, isn't he cute? I thought he turned out really cute. And then I think I'm going to do a house and a tree. So here's my house and tree. Okay. So I put the house and the tree together in, in a little scene together. And I just kind of stretched this out so that this whole like winter, little hill thing was on the bottom. So, okay. So I'm just going to do maybe like 3 pieces of each month, and just make some little vignettes here. So I thought this was really fun to do. I really like this tree and I like the house. So I did them the same way that I'm going to do the gnome, and you can go get these and do these yourself. And really, really, I mean, they're really cute, and they're not hard at all. I mean, I know it looks like it's really hard to do, but it's not. So these are the papers that they have that you can download. And they're going to give you, like pictures of the little gnomes. And then each piece, each one, like here's the little gnome. And then here's the exploded picture, like the part that you would cut out all your machine applique, hand applique or machine applique parts. So what I did with these then, so that's the first thing on here, is what I did is I scanned, I printed these off, and then I scanned these in to my computer so that I need this picture, so I have something to draw on. So this is going to be my backdrop to draw on. Okay, so we're just going to use that as a backdrop. And then I did the tree, here's the little house, all the little pieces for the house. So I did these and scanned them into my computer. Okay, so here's a little tree. Okay, so I scanned those into my computer first, and then I got them already scanned in, and then I will show you, whoops, second here, I've got a fan blowing, so give me a second to get these organized again. And then we will use that backdrop to digitize these. Okay, so this would work with any like machine applique. So if you want to do kind of traditional machine applique, non-traditionally by using it in the embroidery machine, you can purchase patterns, and then you can just do them, you can digitize them and put them into your embroidery machine. I missed where the designs came from. Okay, the designs came from, it's called Gnome of the Month. And there's a Facebook group called Jelly Roll Club. And you can go and join the Facebook group. And then their website where you find all the designs is called jellyrollclub.com. And it's just under Gnome of the Month. And they're all free, but they're free for personal use. So I'm just using this for myself. That's why I didn't give you any designs or anything. You'll have to do your own. These are for personal use. And I just wanted to do something for fun that some of my friends were doing, traditionally, and I would rather do them in the embroidery machine. So, so we're just going to I'll show you how I digitize these, and then you can go grab them yourself or do any other ones. I do this with other machine applique pieces that I found that I like. I just go get them and scan my pieces in, and then I digitize it to make it into an embroidery design. So as you can see, he turned out really cute. I had a really good time. I'm sorry there's a little bit of a glare. There we go. See if I can get him to stop glaring. So I thought he turned out really cute. He has a little nose. We're going to do the nose as a fill. So, okay. All right. So let me share my screen. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Lynn. Lynn put on the site for you. So, and just a second here. I just got to share my screen. Share my screen. There we go. Okay. Get this down here. And hopefully you'll be able to see my screen pretty soon. Okay. Oh, just a second here. I don't want you to see. You don't need to see me, though. Let me get myself out of here. Sorry, I have to get onto the right page here. I need to do just the screen. There we go. Okay. Got too many buttons on this thing you have to do. Okay. So we're going to be doing this I have been downloading these. Yeah. They're doing them once a month. So, you know, there's only like 4 months now. So because they did April. So May should be coming out pretty soon too. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and open up Embroidery Tool Shed. I'm going to turn my lights back on because it's dark in here. So we're going to open up Embroidery Tool Shed. And of course, you know, my inspiration today pops up. And I'm going to create a new design. So when this little screen comes up, I'm going to click the little button that says create a new design. Okay. And also just, you know, that first little thing that came up, let me grab it here. They have free designs every month from Dime now too. Actually, it's every week, isn't it? That they're doing that on their, Just Between Friends that they do on Thursdays. So this is where you can go to get those designs if you want them. Okay. Hi, Kathy. So I'm just going to create a new design. And let's make this bigger. Let's see. Well, maybe not. I think I'll just leave it this size. Pull it up a little bit. Keep that screen sharing thing out of the way. Okay. So like I said, I have already scanned my pieces, you know, my exploded pieces of my little gnome. And yeah, it's every week, isn't it? Yeah. Where do you get the embroidery tool design? Embroidery Tool Shed? Embroidery Tool Shed, Nancy, is what I'm using is Perfect Embroidery Pro. So it's actually a paid version, but they do have a free version of this software. And it's called Embroidery Tool Shed. And you can get it at inspiredbydime.com. And it is a free software. You would not be able to do this in the free software, but you can do editing, color changing, resizing, stuff like that. And so it is a very good software for basic needs, and it's free. So, and I'm going to do a little bit with that later for another class that we're going to be doing in June. So I'm going to show Embroidery Tool Shed and some stuff you can do with that in the free version, even if you don't have any other software. That would be a great one to have. So, okay. Inspiredbydime.com. And it's called Embroidery Tool Shed. But this is Perfect Embroidery Pro, which is the full digitizing software that we're using tonight. Okay. So I've scanned my designs or my papers in, and I'm going to go and I'm going to make this a backdrop. So I have something to digitize over. You know, I need help. Drawing. I'm not a very good drawer. Just a second. I'm going to have to turn the TV down in the living room. Just a second. Okay. Sorry, I can't concentrate if there's too much noise. Okay, so I just digitized, I scanned in my little papers, and I'm going to use it as a backdrop to draw on because I am not a good drawer. All right, so I'm going to get my backdrop tool. Now the backdrop tool is about halfway down on the left, I'm just going to click on it, and then it's going to open up and ask me, you know, where is my backdrop? So I happen to put these on the desktop so that I could find them real fast tonight. And it's in January. And then here's my JPEG. So you need to have it like in a picture file, something like that. So I've made these all JPEGs here. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click on the little gnome. So we're going to do the little gnome tonight. So here's the piece of paper. It's like, you know, the entire 8.5 by 11 and all the different pieces. Okay. So now we're going to, we got our backdrop tool. We've loaded our backdrop. Sometimes I need to make this a little bit lighter colored so it's easier to see where I'm drawing because the backdrop's kind of dark. So over here on the right, there's actually a thing where you can adjust how dark it is. And I'm just going to bring this a little lighter and click apply. Just so that this part is a little bit lighter colored. So when I go to draw, it's a little bit easier for me to see where I'm drawing. Okay. And I can see the lines a little bit better that I'm actually drawing. Okay. Now the next thing I want to do is I want to look, and this would go for any one of these types of designs that you're doing. You want to look at the layers so that you know what goes first and then what goes on top of that and what goes on top of that. So you kind of have to look at the appliques like you would think in your head how they would go. If you digitize it in that order, it's less, then you won't have to move things around so much. So I kind of still digitize kind of in the way that I'm going to be sewing it. I kind of think of through in my brain before I digitize. So that way you can really, you don't have to move things around so much at the end. Okay, so what we're going to do, so obviously, you know, the bottom layer is going to be his shoes. Okay, and then the body is going to go on top of the shoes, and then his beard will go on top of his body, and then his nose, and we're going to make that a fill, and then his little hat is on the top. Okay, now also on this particular design, you notice that there's some dotted lines on this piece of paper. That's where the overlap is going to be. And I don't know that every applique pattern is going to be like this. These happen to be, but a lot of them have something indicating where they're supposed to be overlapped. Some of them are dotted lines. I've seen different applique ways that they designate that this is where the overlap is going to be. But in this case, it's dotted lines. So that will help us with the digitizing. Okay. All right. Second, I've got some notes for me, so I'm just going to turn the page so I know where I'm at. Okay. So now we're going to start digitizing. So what we said is that the first layer is going to be his shoes because that's going to be the bottom. And then we're going to put a layer on top of that. Hi, Denise. And then that will be the body. Okay. So let's digitize his shoes first. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go up here to my artwork tool. And I'm going to get my pen because I'm just going to do some drawing. Okay. And my shoes are kind of small. So let's go over here and get the zoom tool and just kind of zoom in on the shoes so we can see them big. Okay. I have to get my pen again. And what I like to do is, since we know that the dotted line is what's going to be like underneath the next layer, I'm going to kind of start on the dotted line because when we go to finish the applique and take the satin work with the satin stitches, we don't want satin stitches underneath the next layer because that will make it bulky. Okay. So what I started doing with these is just doing that line first, because then I know exactly where those satin stitches I need to remove them, in other words. Okay. So we're just going to start up here at the top left hand of this little shoe. And if you need a curved line, you can hold your control key down and then you'll get a nice curve. So I'm going to go across the dotted lines first, and I'm going to make sure that I put a point right at the other side of the shoe. Then I'm going to hold my control key down again, and I'm going to go around the shoe. Okay, so I'm holding my control key down because this is curved. Okay. And once I get up to where I started, I'm going to not quite connect. You don't need to connect this because we're going to work with this, but I want to get them as close as I can to connected in that corner. And if it's not connected, I can actually fix that. So what I'm going to do is let's go a little bit bigger in that area. And you can see I'm not very connected there. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab my shape tool. All right. And those two places are not very connected. So I'm just going to select them with my shape tool. That's the second one down on the left. And then I'm going to right click and I'm going to align at the top. And so that should get them pretty close. And if they're still not quite there, you can align them to, say, the left. And that should pretty much align them. And I just hit enter just to kind of get it more aligned. Okay. So now I have that corner pretty nicely aligned. Can't see what I'm doing very well. So we're just going to zoom to fit and then zoom back in on my shoes here. All right. So we've got our line. I drew around with the pen tool. Now, this is just artwork at this point. So I'm just going to go get my selection tool again. And right now, this is just artwork. Okay. And I'm going to make sure that I'm on the first color, which I am. So I right clicked on my number 1 color box. And I am going to convert this to stitches. Okay, so I'm going to right click, convert to, and at this case, we want an applique, right? So I'm going to click applique. All right. I've got my applique around there. You can see the satin stitches. Let's do a little bit of we'll change a few things on this. My applique width needs to be, and you can change your type. So like in my case, I like satin stitches. So you don't have to use satin stitches. So the types here, you can choose your type. There's a satin, an E stitch. You know, the E stitch is the little like blanket stitch all the way around. So you can use that if you want. There's other different types of stitches around the outside edge. So I'm going to use satin though. That's what I wanted on mine. Okay. And then I'm going to change my width to 4 millimeters. I wanted a little wider because it was a pretty good sized applique. I like the stitch length. That means that's the stitch length for the running stitches that we're going to have on there because we need, you know, several pieces to our applique. I want it at 2.5. The density is fine at 0.4. I like that. I'm going to leave my corner type at square because these are mostly going to be kind of rounded shapes. And then down here, they've changed this a little bit in the last couple of updates. There used to be 2 click boxes. Now there's just 1. And I want a placement line because remember with appliques, we want a placement line, then a tack down line, and then the covering stitch. So I'm going to select placement line. My tack down, I would like it to be a run, but they do give you now the option of a zigzag. So if you want to have your tack down as a zigzag, because there's times when you might have like a thicker fabric, if you use a zigzag tack down, it'll cover the edges a little bit better. Okay, so that's something that is another option now that they didn't give you before. Or you can just say you don't want a tack down. Okay. So I'm going to leave it at run. That's what I want. I'd like it to change colors for the placement line, the tack down line, so that I don't have to do that manually. And then I like to inset my appliques to 60 or 70%. So this one I did 60%. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead then, and I'm going to click apply. So you're going to notice that my shoe is the satin stitches look a little bit wider, and they kind of moved in a little bit. Okay. So let's go over here to the sequence view. Oops, second here. Got to get to the sequence view. There we go. And when I open up the first color, because we've just done one thing so far, when I open up this first color, all it says is applique. Well, so I can't see the tack down. I can't see the placement line. All I can see is applique. Well, in order to do what we need to do next, we need to be able to see all the pieces. So this is how you get to the other two pieces that are part of this applique. I'm going to select the applique in the sequence view. I'm going to right click on it. And then in this menu, there's a little thing that says break up path. And what that's going to do is it's going to open up the placement line, the tack down line, and then the applique will be at the bottom. Okay. So when I click that, now if you look over here in my sequence view, I have 3 things instead of just one. So here's my run for the placement line. Here's a run for the tack down line. And then here's the applique, which is the satin stitches. Okay. So that's a very simple. We're going to do this several times, so you'll get the hang of this, because it's going to be the same thing over and over. Okay. So let's go ahead then, and we need to, when we know that these shoes are going to be underneath the body, so we don't want all of this bulky stuff going on up here. Okay. So let me show you how to get rid of those stitches. Again, we're going to go back to the second tool down. It's called the shape tool. And we want the shape tool just on the applique part. I only am going to remove the stitches from the applique, not the placement line, not the tack down line, because there's still going to be some fabric under there, but we just don't want these heavy satin stitches. Okay. So I've gone to the sequence view and just selected my applique section, the last section. Okay. So now when we get up here, so let's make this a little bit bigger so you can see it. Okay. So you can see that there's a red, oh, got to get my shape tool again. You can see there's a red ball right here. And if I pull these away from each other, there's a red and a green dot. And what those are is the start and stop point of the satin stitch. But my goal right now is to get rid of the satin stitches along the top of the shoe, because I don't want those to sew underneath there. I want the placement and I want the tack down, but I don't want the satin stitches. So what I need to do is I need to get a hold of this. So see, now I'm connected here because I got it lined up pretty well. So I'm connected there. So that means I need to unconnect it again. I must have really gotten it connected well. So if I select it, right click, I can find a little thing where it says split line. So I must have really gotten it connected nicely. So I'm going to have to split it up again. Okay. So I'm going to hit split line, and now I should be able to get to 2 parts of this, maybe. Sometimes it takes me a couple of tries to get it. I'm going to split the line again and see if it'll let go. Sometimes it doesn't let go, and I don't know why. And it's going to do that for me tonight, so that's weird. Okay. I'm going to back up a little bit and see if I can get that to not be quite so lined up. Sometimes when I line them up, I just backed up to my artwork. And I didn't line it up this time. Remember how we lined it up? And sometimes if I just don't line them up, it works better. So I'm going to go back and not line it up. So there we go. You can see those two little places there. I just keep hitting the back key. Can you see where there's one over the other one? So that's good because then I can get to those nodes better. So let's try it now. Okay, so I'm going to go back to fit. See, it's good when things like that happen and then you can see what I'm doing. All right, so let's go and make these a little bit bigger. Let's just get this one shoe so we can see. Okay. Now we're going to go select it again. And I remember I'm back to the artwork because I went all the way back to the artwork. And I'm going to right click, convert to an applique. So we're just repeating what we did. I'm going to keep it as satin. I'm going to make the width at 4 millimeters. My stitch length at 2.5. Leave the density alone. Corner type square is fine. I got my placement line and my tack down line as a run. I've changed the colors. And now I'm going to change my inset to 60% and click apply. Okay, so that was the first step. The second step, remember we broke it apart. So I'm going to right click on it, break up the path. Okay. So now I've got the 3 pieces. There's my placement line, my tack down line, and my applique. All right. So now with the appliques, let's see if we can get to the parts better. All right. Let's bring this in. I'm going to zoom up again so we can see what we're doing here. Okay. Get my shape tool. Okay. So now we got the little nodes. These little nodes, what they are is the start and stop point. Okay. And then the nodes, I've got my applique chosen, only the applique. We don't want the other 2 pieces. Now I should be able to get, aha, there we go. See, I could get into the separate nodes there. So this one, we're just going to leave alone. And this one that I moved up here, I want to get rid of that. So I'm just going to hit delete. I selected it. Let's make this a little smaller. And we're going to work across the top of the shoe here, getting rid of those nodes. Okay, so I'm going to pull this start point over here, just get it out of the way. So here's my node that I want to get rid of. We're going to delete that. Okay, I'm going to delete this. Now you saw that I put a node on the tip of the shoe here and the tip of the shoe here, because this is the part in the center here that I didn't want. So I'm going to hit enter right now. And look, the satin stitch disappeared, but we still got our placement lines there because we do need those. Now I want my start and stop point. I want it to start here and I want it to stop on the other side. So I'm just going to pull those around so that, and hit enter, so that my my satin stitch is going to start here and go around the shoe and end here. Okay, so that they won't start and stop in the same place roughly. All right. So let's do this again with the other shoe. So I'm going to second here, move over a little bit. There's our other shoe. I'm going to go get my pen in the artwork tool. I'm going to, I think it's big enough so you should be able to see it. So we're going to start over here on the side and then I'm going to work across the dotted line. Okay, so I'm going to click, I'm going to hold my control key and we're just going to draw the shoe. Okay, and I want to stop on the other side of the shoe, the tip. So I had a point here, down here, and a point up here. Okay, and then I'm going to hold I'm holding my control key so that it's curved. That gives me these nice curved lines. Oops. Sorry, sometimes if I get my mouse, it stops the middle. We'll try again. Oh, there we go. If I get too close to the right side of the mouse pad, it quits. So, all right. So then I'm going to, oops, I might have made a mistake there though. Try one more time. You don't want to be on, don't hold your control key down at the top where you kind of want it to be kind of a straight line. I make sure you let go of your mouse or your control key before you get up there. I had left it down and it was going to be a funny corner then. So, all right, but we do want the curves here. So I've got my control key down. I'm just drawing around the shoe. Drawing around the shoe. Okay, and I'm going to go up here. And then, like I said, try not to get it quite as lined up as I did before. So I think it works better if it's not quite as lined up. Okay, so there's my drawing. Now I think this one, I'm going to touch the second shoe, the artwork over here, and I'm going to right click on color number 2 because I want to get this to be a different color. So I'm working with a different color, batch of colors. Okay. All right, so now we're going to do the same thing. We're going to do the same thing we did for the first shoe. I've got it selected over here, my artwork. I'm going to right click on it. I'm going to convert to an applique. So there's my applique. But now we need to get into the pieces of it. We're going to go ahead and change our settings first. So my width was 4.0. My stitch length was 2.5. Density is the same. Corner type's the same. I want my placement line and my tack down to be runs. I want to change the colors. I want the inset to be 60%. And then I'm going to click apply. Okay. So now when we look at this, see, it just is that one thing. So we need to be able to get to the pieces. So I'm going to click. I'm going to highlight or select the applique. I'm going to right click on it and I'm going to break up the path. All right. So now you can see here's the 3 pieces for the first shoe. Here's the 3 pieces for the second shoe. All right. So now the second shoe, we need to get rid of this piece of satin stitch up there. So I'm going to select the satin stitch. I'm going to go get my shape tool. I'm going to move the start and stop points away. So let's just get these out of our way for a minute. So we probably have it stop over in this side. So we'll kind of get these out of the way for the time being. And then I'm going to grab the little blue dots or your nodes where you're drawing. So see, I got the piece and I'm going to delete that one. I'm going to go down here and I'm going to delete this one. I'm going to go down here and delete this one. And now let's move the little start and stops to this point and this point. And if I hit enter or apply over here, then it will give me my shoe without the satin stitch and your placement line and your tack down line. Okay, so there's our 2 shoes. So the reason I did them in this order, so now it'll do the left shoe and then it'll do the right shoe. And now we're ready to do the body. So then I don't have to move all this stuff around. And like I can leave the same color of thread in. So like my shoes I made in black. So then I could run a black tack down placement, black tack down, black satin stitch, and then another black tack down or placement line, tack down line, and satin stitch. So then I don't have to change the colors so often. Okay. So there's our first 2 pieces. So let me show you this. I'm going to go to fit. And there's our 2 shoes. Okay. So is this starting to make sense to everybody? So we're going to do the next layer. We're going to do exactly the same way. Okay. So we're going to work on the body this time because, you know, the body is going to go on top of the shoes. So let's go ahead and I'm going to zoom in to just the body so you can see it better. Okay. And then, oh, good. I'm getting thumbs up. So you must understand. So let's go get our pen tool again because we need to draw the body this time. I'm going to get the pen tool. Okay. Now I'm going to do the 3rd color. I'm just going to do color number 3. Until you try to do it yourself. I understand, Cindy. So I'm going to right click on color number 3 because I want to make sure that I'm working with another batch of colors. Okay. And again, I've got my pen tool on here and I'm going to start on the top left-hand side, and then I'm going to go down where the dots are first, because that's the part that we need to get rid of, okay, for the satin stitching. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and click there. Now this one's a little bit more straight. So I'm not holding my control key down. I'm just going to draw along the dotted line here, because we do need that for the placement and the tack down line. Okay, so there's kind of the end, and now I'm going to put my control key down because now it's a little more curvy over on this side. Okay, I'm going to go up to the top right hand side, but I'm going to let go of my control key. Okay, now we're going to go back down the side, and I'm going to put my control key down because we want our body to be nice and curved. So I'm just clicking around the body. And you don't have to do it in the exact order because you can always move things around. But boy, does it ever save time. When you're doing these, you can do them and then you don't have to move everything around at the end. Okay, so now I'm ready to go back to the top. So I'm going to try not to get it quite as lined up as I did before. And right click. Okay. All right, let's see how we did here. So I'm on the body. Okay. So let's zoom in on this little thing. So we should be okay with this being fairly close like that. All right, so let's go back to fit, bring it up to the body. I'm just using the zoom tool to do that so you can just see the body. I'm going to get my selection tool, come over here to my artwork that I just made. I'm going to right click, convert to an applique. Then we're going to do the same thing. We're going to choose our type of applique. You can choose any type you want. I just like I like satin stitches. So I'm going to do the same width, 4.0. My stitch length is going to be 2.5. So I'm just going to do the same things. Applique density is fine. My corner type is fine. I got my placement line selected. My tack down is a run. I've got my change colors down here, and then my inset is going to be 60. And this is just settings that I like. You can do any settings you want. If you want wider, they actually have some new, I have that Applique and Patchmaker software active on this. So now they have some neat new satin stitches like that have like the like bean stitch in the middle of it. So there's a couple of new ones down here. So there's a lot of different options. You can use your symbols, you can use your motifs, you know, anything you want. So I'm just using satins because that's what I liked. Okay. All right. So I think we're happy with that. Now the next step is going to be, we need to break that up so I can see all the pieces of our applique. So I'm going to choose my applique. I'm going to right click on it, and I'm going to break up the path. So now if I look over here, I've got my 3 pieces of my first shoe, my 3 pieces of my second shoe, and then the 3 pieces of my body. Okay. How can you, Cindy, yes, there's a couple different ways you can do that. What I did to make my backdrops is I just printed them out and I scanned them into my scanner and made them into a JPEG. So that's one way. The other option is there is a PDF file, and you can actually make that PDF file into a JPEG with a little program called Bullzip. But the scanning was actually the fastest for me. I just scanned them in. I printed them off and scanned them into my scanner. So either way would be fine. So I just printed off the PDF file that they had in the download and just put it on my scanner, my printer over there. Okay. All right. So now we've got our body, but we don't want those satin stitches. Are the applique options that you are choosing your normal choices? Yes, those are my normal choices. Well, for this is a pretty good sized one, Denise. So I wanted the satin stitches to be a little bit wider because this particular design, they make up about 9 inches or so tall. So it was pretty good sized applique. You could always go wider if you want, or you can go narrower. So when they're smaller, I use narrower settings. So these were just pretty good size. So I used kind of the bigger size of the overlap or the satin stitches. And I almost always use a 60% or maybe a 70% inset, because that way I always know that my fabric is going to be covered well and not have a gap for the applique. So that's why I choose that 60%. Okay, so we got our 3 pieces. Here's our placement line, tack down line, and then here's the applique. So now we need to work with that to get rid of those stitches. So I've got it selected. I'm going to go over here and get my shape tool again. This is how you work with the bits of that, what you've drawn. And we got our little start stop. So I'm going to get these just kind of out of our way. I'm going to pull this one over here because I know I'm going to stop on the right. I usually start on the left and stop on the right, but you can do it the other way if you want. And then let's get in here a little bit bigger so you can see the nodes. Okay, so here's my nodes. Get my shape tool, and I'm going to grab the one that's part of the dotted line. So I'm going to, did I get it? Yeah, I got it. So there's that one. I kind of just pull it up so I can see it. And then I'm going to delete it. I'm going to go get the next one and delete it. So I just go through this whole area and get the nodes from the satin stitch. Okay, so I'm going to have to move over here a little bit, just a second. Let's see, down here. I know these probably aren't showing up real well, but I'm just working on getting rid of all the nodes along the dotted line of my satin stitch. Okay, now I've got my node here on this tip and my node here on this tip. And at this point, let's move the little start stop points. Start and stop. And then when I hit enter on my keyboard, like that, look, the satin stitches are gone. You can do that, Cindy. That is fine. You can draw a box. Sometimes if I do that, I catch one that I don't want to delete. So I usually delete them one at a time when I need it to be specific. So that's why I don't draw a box all the time. Sometimes I do. Oh yeah, these are really fun. Aren't these fun, Lynn? So yeah, so I'd like to do some more too. So that'd be something we could work on. Okay, so there is my body. Look at there. Got all the stitches out from underneath there. Let's to fit. I'm going to go up here to the zoom to fit. And now we've got the shoes and the body done. Okay, so the next layer is going to be his beard. All right, so let me make sure I've got everything here. Okay, so here's his beard. So we're going to work on that one. Let's zoom in a little bit to his beard. And I'm going to do the same exact thing. I'm going to go grab the pen. Okay. I'm going to start over here on the left. And I've always learned to digitize kind of from the left to the right. And that's why I do it this way. And I also want, on this one, I found it was faster if I went, started with the dotted line, because I knew that's where the eliminating of the satin stitches was going to happen. Okay. So I'm going to click on the top left right there. And now I'm going to put my control key down because I want some curves, and I'm going to go up over the dotted lines. Okay. I'm going to come down, and I'm going to try to put a point right at the other side of his little beard. Okay. I let go of my control key there. That is correct, Carol. With Embroidery Tool Shed, it's more of an editing program. This is the full version of Perfect Embroidery Pro. So this is their digitizing software. But there's a lot of editing and stuff you can do with that program, and it is wonderful for being free. I mean, it does a lot of stuff that you can, if you just need to alter things. Yeah, that's why that I learned this, Cindy, as I was going through it. I just decided, you know what, that works the best, and then I know exactly where I need to get rid of my stitches. Okay, so I've got my point here. I think I'm going to put my control key back down again because this is kind of curved over here. Now, when I get down here to his beard, I want a nice point down here. So I'm going to let go of my control key. I'm going to go up to this point, and I did not put my control key down. This section here is a little curvy, so I think I'll put my control key down for a couple of points, and then I'm going to let it up, and then put it down again. So once you get to going with the drawing, you'll kind of get the feel of where you need to put your control key down and let it up. Okay, so I'm going to put it back down again. Okay, and when I go up into the tip, I'm going to let go of it. I'm going to let go of it for the other tip down here because I want these points to be a little bit more angular. Okay, this one's a little curvy, so we'll go up to this one. I let it up there. I'm going to let it up here, and now I'm going to put it back down again so I can get this nice curve of his beard over here, and then go up and get as close as I can to that point. Okay. And then I right-click, you right-click to stop drawing, okay? So that looks pretty good. Let's see here. I'm going to zoom in to that point and see if I did okay with the point. I think it's okay that we'll be able to get into it. All right. Looks pretty good. So, all right. So let's bring it down. Oops. I'll still have my drawing tool instead of my zoom tool. There we go. Bring his beard up again. Okay. So now we're going to go over here and look in our sequence view, and we have our artwork. Okay, so on the artwork, let's go ahead and change the color again so that we know that the colors keep going. So I'm going to choose number 4. This is the 4th part, so we'll just use number 4. I right-clicked on that. And now I'm going to right-click again on the artwork. I'm going to convert to an applique. And there's my applique design. Okay, now this one, I can't remember. Let's see what it looks like. There's something we can do with the corners here because remember there were some corners that were a little bit more angular. So we might want to choose a different option. So let's see how this looks. I'm going to keep my satin. I'm going to do my 4.0 for the width and 2.5 for the length. Density the same, but the corner type, let's see what it looks like as extended. Because do you see this little corner right here? It looks kind of blunt on the end. So let's see what extended looks like on that one. We may change it back, but let's try it. Placement line, tack down as a run, got my change the colors, and then I'm going to inset it 60%. And I'm going to click apply. So let's see what those little points look like if we extend them this time. Actually, that looks pretty good. So I think I'll leave it as extended. Sometimes when I do real tight points like that, the extended version looks nicer and it gives it a real nice pointed look. Okay, so I think that'll look good this time. So we'll go ahead and use that. All right. Now, if we go back down to our sequence view again, we need to break up the path so we can get to the other pieces. So I'm going to select my applique. I'm going to right click on it. I'm going to break up the path so I can get to, now if we look down here, so there's the 3 pieces of the body. And now here's the 1, 2, 3 pieces of the beard. So we need to do the same thing with the beard. What does inset mean? Inset is how far, okay, so like it defaults at 50%. So that means half of the satin stitch is off of the fabric and half of the satin stitch is on the fabric. So it like splits down the middle. Inset, if you inset it more, like 60%, 60% of the satin stitch will be on your fabric of your applique and only 40% will be off. So that means it's gonna take a bigger bite of your fabric. So I like to inset my satin stitches so that I know for sure that everything's going to stay covered. Okay. So that's what inset means. Where your satin stitch is going to lie. Now, let's say we were doing an E-stitch on this instead. On an E-stitch, so let's just do that as an example quickly. If we were doing an E-stitch, let's just change this temporarily to an E-stitch. Okay. And click apply. So here's my E-stitches. And I'd have to use different stitching. But you can see that the E-stitch doesn't go up to the other placement lines. So the line, it's not going to land in the right spot. It's going to be like there's going to be a gap between the edge of my E-stitch and my applique. Well, then the inset for that one actually would be 100%, because then it would go on top of my placement line. So then it would bring, and then all those lines would line up. Okay. So that's the difference in the inset. Okay. So let me just go back to the other stitch. Does that make sense to everybody about the inset then? That's a very good question. Let's go back to where it was. Okay, there we go. All right. So now we're going to go ahead and we're going to get rid of those satin stitches we don't want on the top part of the beard. So, and some people may want to do like these with an E-stitch. If you wanted to look like more like traditional machine applique, that may be the way you want to do these. You know, you might want to make these all done with a E-stitch, because that would be very usable. Now, if you were going to do a E-stitch though, what I would tell you is I would tell you that you need to have a placement line, but no tack down line. Because for the E-stitches, what I do is I use like Heat and Bond Light on the back of my fabric. And I do the placement stitch, and then I adhere my fabric down, and then I do the E-stitch around it, if that makes sense to everybody. So I always leave out the tack down line. I don't want it to tack down. I want it to just be E-stitched down. Okay. So I only have 2 pieces for that type of applique, but I knew I was going to do this with satin stitches. So I have all 3 of my pieces. Okay. So we got our applique. I'm going to go in and get my shape tool again. And we are going to do our altering of our satin stitch. So let's just pull these little start and stop buttons away again, the little balls, the little circles. And let's get a little bit bigger so I can see where I'm going here. Okay. And let's see if I can get a hold of that node. Yep, there we go. So there's that. That's the node that I want to get rid of. So I'm going to delete that. Let's go back down a little bit so you can see. I'm just going back and forth between the tools. So I'm going to get rid of this node, this node. Okay, I'm just going around. And this one. Okay, so I think that's the ones I want to get rid of. Let's do our start point over here on the left and our end point over here on the right. And then I'm going to hit enter on my keyboard, and voila, our satin stitches are gone. All right. To fit. Okay. So there's the shoes, then the body, and then the beard. So the next little part is going to be his nose. I think that's the next part, was going to be his nose. Let me see. Yes. So his nose, I'm going to make a fill. So let's go ahead and we'll zoom into our nose here. I wanted his nose to be a fill. So here's his nose. And I'm going to get color number 5 this time, but I'm going to go ahead and get a tool. I'm going to use the ellipse tool this time because it's actually kind of a circle. Okay. The reason being, Lynn, when you use the applique, when you convert to applique, I need the placement line and I need the tack down line to be all the way around the item. And then I just get rid of the applique, the satin stitches. Yep. The answer is the placement of the tack down line. Correct. If you would draw, you could also draw this more manually, and you could do each piece separately manually and then draw just without the satin stitches where you don't want them. But this is a little faster, I think, doing it that way, because when I learned to make applique, I learned it manually. So I would draw each line separately, and this is so much faster you only have to draw once. Okay. And the software's changed over the years, so that's why I do it this way now. Okay, so we're going to do the nose. I've got my ellipse tool this time because it's kind of a circle. And I'm just going to kind of draw this out roughly. Okay, and let's select that, and I'm going to go get color number 5. I'm going to right click on color number 5 here. And then let's just pull this up, this little circle, so that it kind of looks like my nose. It's kind of the same shape as my nose, same size as the nose. Okay. That looks pretty good. Oh, and by the way, we're going to do something at the end. All of these papers, and I did notice one that wasn't, but they're mirrored. So like if you're doing traditional applique, you would be printing these like on a piece of like heat and bond light or something, and cutting it out. So then you'd be flipping it over because the fabric would be on the back. So these are all mirrored. So we're actually going to flip them over here in a minute. Okay. All right. So here's my nose with my ellipse tool. This time though, I've got it selected. Make sure it's selected here. Okay. I'm going to right click and I'm going to convert to a complex fill this time. So I'm going to make the new fill a standard complex fill. There's other fills you can use. I just wanted to use a standard one. And I think I used the pattern random. It looked a little bit more like skin. Here it is. And I think the stitch length I left alone and the density I left alone. So I'm pretty happy with that. And let's just click apply. Okay. Now you can't really see it too much. I'm going to click this button. There's a little cube that's a realistic button. And then you can kind of see what the stitches are going to look like on the nose. So it kind of made it look a little more like skin. It was more of a random fill. It wasn't so even. Okay. So I kind of like that one. All right. So let's go back down to fit so you can see. And there's all of our parts so far. And all we have left now to do is the hat. The hat's the top layer. So in this case, we're not going to take out any satin stitches because all the hat needs to be satin stitched this time. Okay. So we're going to do this one. So let's go ahead and kind of zoom in on the hat here so I can see a little bit better. And I'm going to go up and get my pen tool again. And then I think I'll get color number 6 this time, just so I can keep the colors separate. Okay. Now we're going to draw around the hat. And now this one's pretty curvy. So I'm going to go ahead and use my control key for most of this one. I'm just drawing around. I think I'll let it go when I get down here to the bottom of this little first side though. The curve tool does a really good job of making your drawings really nice looking. I'm going to let go of my control key right here though, because I want that point to be squared. And I'm going to put it back down again now. Going around. These were really fun. I've been enjoying doing these. I love to sit and digitize, and it's very relaxing. I'm going to let go of my control key there. Then we're going to go put it back down again when we get up here. Now this one, I really do want to make sure my ends meet nicely. So I am going to really try to get them in sync, but we may have to fix them a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom in to that point here. And, it's kind of a light color, so you may not be able to see it very well. But I can see that my points are not very lined up. So I'm going to select those 2 points. I'm going to right click and I'm going to align to the top. And I'm going to maybe align. Let's see. I think maybe they're okay though. Nope, they were aligned now. Okay, so those look pretty good then. We'll select it again. And I did that with the shape tool. Okay, so there's my hat. So I'm just gonna select that. Make sure I didn't miss a step here. I'm gonna right click on it. We're gonna convert to an applique. Okay, and then we're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna do our settings. 4.0. The stitch length will be 2.5. I'm gonna leave this the corner type squared. Placement line, tack down line is a run. Got my change colors, and then inset of 60. And click apply. All right, so let's see how our hat looks. I noticed that the top of my hat looks a little funny, so I want to get a little bit closer to that and see. And it's okay, I guess. There's a little teeny bit of a point at the top, but I don't know if I can fix that. I kind of did I'm just going to pull these 2 nodes out of the way. I kind of did a squared, I took my control key off there and it looks a little more rounded. So if I select it and I right click it, this is with the shape tool, I can do a smooth here and that might smooth it off a little bit better. And let's see if that makes it look better. So we'll get the start and stop parts there again. Yeah, see that smoothed it up. So you can select those points, and I told it to be a point, but it really isn't a point on the design. It's a little bit more rounded. So you can see it rounded it out pretty nicely there. Let me get those nodes out of there. See how it rounded it out? I just selected it, right clicked with the shape tool and smoothed. Okay. So there's our hat. Now the hat, we don't have to split it apart if you don't want to, because the software, when you make it into a embroidery design, when you save it as like a PES file in my case, it will automatically make it it'll split it up so there'll be a placement line, a tack down line. So you don't have to do it now. We needed to do that with the other pieces in order to get to the part that we needed to fix. Okay. So I'm just going to leave that one be this time. Actually though, I might actually do this. And the reason being, the software does this and I don't know why. So if I click on that one, the last one, and just break up my path, usually then it doesn't combine the colors. So for some reason, the software, if you don't do that, sometimes what it likes to do is then it would do the fill of my nose, and then it would do the placement line with the same color without stopping of my hat. And your hat, you may need to have the color changed. So if you split it up, then remember we chose the hat to have the different colors. So that way it should come out with different colors. The software is a little weird with the splitting sometimes when it goes to a PES file. So I don't know why, but it just is sometimes. Okay, so we've got all of our parts digitized. I'm going to turn off my backdrop. So to turn off your backdrop, you go down here to the bottom backdrop tool. It's kind of down on the left towards the bottom, and I'm going to click it off. And see, now all I have is my designs and no backdrop. I'm going to just select all right now, because remember I told you these were mirrored. Well, I want them to be the other direction. So I'm going to edit, select all. And then I'm going to take the whole thing and we're just going to use the little mirror button up here and flip them all over so that they're now the right direction according to my pictures here. Okay. That's the way the little gnome actually is Well, all the gnomes, you do have to digitize them before. Yes, these are actually machine embroidery that you would do by hand or with a sewing machine. So yes, so these would all have to be digitized if you wanted to do them this way. You would just have to sit and digitize them. All right, so there's all my pieces. Got them all mirrored. We got them actually going the direction they're supposed to be. And now we just need to put them together. So I'm going to grab these and kind of pull them apart so that they are not so close together, so that I can just kind of, you know, move them around. So I am trying to get all 3 pieces together. We need our placement line, the tack down line, and the applique all together. So try to get them, you know, kind of all the pieces. It's like my papers are blowing. I've got a fan blowing. It's a little warm in here. All right. All right. There's this hat. So I'm just going to pull these away and get them apart so that I'm just drawing a box around them so we can work with them. Okay. So now let's put him together. So here's his feet. So let's bring his shoe up here. We'll just bring him up here. And I think the shoe needs to be rotated. So it looks a little funny sticking up like that. So let's bring it that way. We just need to put him together like he's supposed to be. Okay, so here's, whoops, make sure I got all the shoe here. Here's his other shoe. Okay. And then I'm going to rotate that a little bit so that it looks the right size. Okay. And then here's his body. So let's go get his body, and I may have to move his shoes. So we got his body up here. So see, obviously I don't have the shoes quite right yet. So we're going to move his body. Needs to be rotated a little bit too. So we'll just move his little body here. Kind of get it cut. There we go. That looks flatter. Okay, so now we need to move his shoes again. Well, gets a little tricky now. So now in order to get what you want, should you group each part so you don't have, yes, you can group it if you want to. I normally can, I'm okay you can if you want to, Lynn, yes. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to work with his right shoe first. Okay, that's the one we did first. So I'm just going to go over here to my sequence view, and I'm just going to select the 3 things. So yes, you could just grab those and then group them if you want to. I usually don't, just because I know I can get a hold of them. So there's his foot. So yes, the grouping works fine. Okay, so I'm going to turn this just a little bit more, and then I'm going to bring it up a little bit more. Up just a little bit more. Okay, and I want to make sure that the satin stitches of the body go over his foot so that there's not going to be any gaps there. So that looks pretty good. You just have to kind of put him together the way you want him. Looks pretty good. And then let's go get the other one. So again, you could have grouped these. So here's the second shoe. I'm just going to select them over here in the sequence view and pull the shoe over here. And kind of get it up underneath the edge of his body. Okay, that looks pretty good. Here's that. So here's his shoes, and then his body, and then let's see, we needed his beard. So we'll get his beard. I'm just going to draw a box around it and pull it over. We'll get his beard, and then again, you want to make sure that the satin stitches go just underneath you want to cover up, there's not going to be any gaps. Like that. Well, let's see. I think I got it a little low now, so let's pull it up. And get it where we want it. That looks pretty good. So I'm just making sure that the satin stitches of the body go just up underneath the edges of the beard. That looks pretty good. So then his nose. So the nose is the next piece. So let me go get his nose. Bring it down here. Now his nose is going to be just under his hat. So I'm just going to kind of pull this up there. Well, it might be a little too low. So I'm going to pull his nose down for a minute, and then let's go get his hat. Okay. And again, you could group this. You could right click and group it. So there's group right there if you want to. I'm just going to grab them all ungrouped and pull this down. And then let's get his hat down here. You want his hat to go down and go just cover up the edge of the little beard. Satin stitches. Oops, having a little trouble getting it to settle in. There we go. That looks pretty good. Might need to go up just a little bit. Maybe needs to be, maybe just rotated slightly. There. Let's see. Here we go. There's his hat. So now I know better where to put his nose. So I'm going to get his nose now. And I want it to be just kind of up underneath. I don't want it to go under the satin stitches, but I want it to be just up almost to his, whoops, almost to his hat. There. That looks pretty good. All right. There's his hat. There's his nose and his hat. I think he looks pretty good. What do you think? So let's go ahead and just group him for a minute here. I'm going to select the whole thing. I'm going to right click and group just for a minute, because now what I want to do is I want to right click on the ruler bar and I want to center origin so that he's in the center of my workspace. And I'm just going to ungroup him now. And you don't have to. I just usually ungroup them because I don't need them to be grouped. Okay, so there, I think I'm pretty happy with that little dude. He looks pretty good. So now we need to save him. So we need to go to File, Save As, and we're going to save him as a C2S. We always want that working file because we may need to go back and work on it. Okay. I'm going to call him, I think his name, the little gnome's name was Janus, believe it or not, Janus. So I'm going to put him on my desktop here. Okay, so I saved him as C2S so I can go back in and work with this working file if I need to. And then I'm going to go File, Save As, and I'm going to save him as a PES version 9. And that way I can sew him, and I'll just leave him on the desktop. Then I can sew him. And I already sewed him once. So he is pretty cool, isn't he? What hoop size? He was in, he's not real big. He's, I think it was a 6 by 10 because he's about 4.5 by almost 9 tall. So if I open up that PES file, let's see if I can find the PES file. This is the PES file. Okay. Here's the pieces. So, you know, here's the shoes, shoe, shoe, satin stitch. Shoe, shoe, satin stitch, body, body, satin stitch, beard, beard, satin stitch, and then his nose, whoop, there's a satin stitch, then his nose, and then his hat, hat, satin stitch. Yep, so he fit in a 6 by 10. So isn't he cool? And I just did it weirdo colors because then it just depended on what color my fabrics were going to be. So my fabrics, I use blues and kind of a plaid. So I'll bring the camera back up so you can see the little guy all done. But isn't that fun? And then I just did, you know, the little trees, and I did the little houses that way. And I did it exactly the same way. So just, and it is faster if you can kind of think about the order you're going to put it together. And then do it, you know, digitize it in that order kind of, so that you don't have to do a lot of moving around. You know, that way you've got the order already in place, and then you can just sew at this point. So like I didn't have to move his shoes to the top and his body above, you know, above the shoes and all that. I just digitized it in that order, and it makes it a lot faster. Okay. So let me stop sharing for a minute. I'll bring up my, so you can see my little finished products here again. Stop sharing. Second. Okay, there I am. Hello. And here's my little guy. So see if I can get the glare off of him again. Okay. I don't know if you can get, I can get the, some of these lights. There we go. Some of these lights are very yellow. So there he is. And I did like, I made his shoes out of felt. And I had this plaid I thought was cute for his body. And then I had this kind of like a gingham for his hat. And oh, yeah, that helps a lot. And that's why I decided to start at the top, Cindy, and go across, because that's the part I needed to get rid of. Okay. And then here's the little trees. And I used the same settings for the little tree. Now, this one I think might have been in a bigger hoop because it was a little bit bigger. So this one might have been in a little bit bigger hoop. But this was really fun. So the little picture doesn't have the little the window on it, you know, like this one, the window wasn't on there. So the window was on the kind of like the rendering picture. So I just took and digitized my little window. So those are all appliques too. And then what I did is this piece was just under the house. So I took it and I stretched it out and I made the tree in there. And then I put the tree in there too. So these are my first month's designs. This is January. And I've got some of the other ones done. I just haven't done them all. I haven't sewn them all out yet. So, but these were really fun. So you can see multiple layer applique. If you just kind of have to think it through. What I did when I learned to digitize is I learned to digitize by watching stuff sew. So I really recommend watching applique sew. Then you know what the pieces are, what they're doing, where they're going, you know, where you're going with it. And that's how I learned to do this, because I just kind of work it through, and then I wrote it down. It's like, okay, this goes first and this goes second, you know, and it really helps. Okay. Yeah, I like the canvases. Lynn gave me this idea. I can't take this credit for this. Lynn did some stuff with canvases, and I actually really like this. So I may do these all on the little canvases and just make the gnome and then make his little house in a tree for each month. And then I'll have a little, and I've even got the hangers on the back already. So I'm going to hang these up someplace. I don't know where. So I thought they were cute. And because I didn't really want a quilt of them, I just thought they were darling. I just wanted to have something cute to look at. So, okay. All right. So that is multi-layer applique. Isn't that fun? And these were really cute little subjects to work on. I've just been working on them a little bit at a time, and I've got quite a few of them done. So what we'll do next week is, we're going back to the bench buddies. So we're going to do this one. Let me go grab it. We'll go back to making some bench buddies. So here's the little bench buddy for next week. So we're going to do delight in the little things. Okay, so this will be next week's project. And these are May's. So we're going to start the new May, June, July, and August. So this is the first one. And then the next week will be hanging with my buds. It's the little square one. So, okay. So are there any other questions? Everybody going to go digitize some gnomes now? The gal that did these is going to be wondering, what are all these crazy women doing with all these little digitized gnomes? But they are fun. I just wanted to do them this way because I don't like to do machine applique. I'm very poor at it, and I don't like to do it. So this was really fun way for me to get these done, just like everybody else. So, okay, you're going to try them? Cool. Okay. Thanks, everybody. So everybody have fun digitizing and have a good week. And I'll see you next week, and we'll make the pillow. Yay. These are so adorable this month. So thanks, everybody. Have a good evening.